to NPS Now, your source of news and information about Norfolk Public Schools. I'm your host, Karen Tanner. And with me today is Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Samuel T. King, who's going to share some valuable information about the transformation initiative that the public has already been hearing about. So, Dr. King, the school board recently voted 6-1 in favor of you moving forward with this new initiative. And there's lots of questions out there that parents and community members and even staff have about this new transformation initiative. What's the most important thing you want people to know about this transformation initiative?
Well, I will begin by saying that having the green light to move forward really means that it allows us to move to the next step in the planning process. And the whole initiative around transformation for the schools that are named really centers on securing much needed essential flexibility, also much needed opportunity to expand issues that relate to the individual needs of children, which means time. So flexibility, time in decision making. For example, the decisions that are made within schools will be driven by the needs of students. And I truly do feel that diagnosing, knowing where students are as it relates to the elements of the standard early on from a formative standpoint, that should be ingrained in each of our schools and definitely in these schools.
So what would that flexibility look like with the time and assessing the students? How would that look?
Time really, in my view, surfaces in two ways. One relating to the school calendar itself. I expect that we will have a recommended calendar that will allow us to have flexibility in start when we start. It is my expectation that we have the opportunity to begin school prior to Labor Day. Mm-hmm. All of these things are in the form of recommendations, and I want to reiterate that because this is a work in progress. And of course, ultimately, it has to be approved by the board in order for it to come to fruition.
Right.
But again, being able to move forward in the planning process, I think, is major because of the needs of our schools. And these schools are schools that can benefit from huge support, additional resources, and changing what I refer to as the DNA of what makes schools, what makes the school work. So the whole notion of the calendar means that if given the opportunity to modify a traditional calendar, and we're given the opportunity to begin school prior to Labor Day, we gain additional days that are just, again, in my view, essential to helping us prepare children as we look at the entire school year.
So school would start before Labor Day.
Yes.
When would school end?
Well, that's an unanswered question, and a good question, because we're going to engage the public around that. We have individuals from the community that have volunteered to enter in discussion collaboratively with my designees around what an extended calendar should look like. Mm-hmm. Of course, we are building those parameters in terms of expectations based on what I've said earlier, meaning we need more time. And some people will ask such questions as, okay, why not tag on the days at the end of the school year? Mm-hmm. Well, while we need that as well, I feel that it is essential that we start early. Mm-hmm. Because starting early gives us that X number of additional days with children that need it in order to meet and exceed standards prior to the summative test time. Mm-hmm. Summative test time is typically around month of May, thereabout. So if we are unable to start before Labor Day and we simply tag on days at the end of the year, you don't get that done because those days are after the summative assessment. And what I am saying is our children need more time to be able to, in many cases, catch up because and in many cases students are functioning below grade level. So that means that you have to accelerate the rate at which you deliver the services to children. So it could mean those extended literacy blocks.
Right.
It could mean extended numeracy blocks. It gives us the additional time necessary. It could be the modification of some seat time across various subjects. Does not mean that children won't receive 100% of the subject area requirements that they should, they will. It simply means that it might be on a fluid plane in terms of modified calendars for individual students, because if a student has a particular concern as it relates to literacy, then we might extend a literacy block for that
so it all
child.
depends on what, after you assess the child, what the child needs.
Yeah.
So with these 10 schools, we're going to have different programs at those schools.
Sure.
Share with us a little bit about those different programs.
Sure. I talked earlier a little bit about the schematic that should work in the process. And people should clearly understand that that schematic is the lifeblood of making schools work. That's about assessing and determining that the appropriate curriculum, our pacing guides aligned to the SOL element of the standards, that those things are actually there, in place, and functioning, that we provide that for teachers, that we provide the necessary support for teachers to be able to plan based on those pacing guides, and that we know that that type of information is being delivered in the classrooms. And so it simply means that we know that children are being taught the elements of the standard that are required. And so we have a process to inspect what we expect. That's a facet of the schematic that will have to be in 100% of our schools, definitely in these 10, but also across the board in all of our schools. So the strategic plan itself will ensure that those things happen across all schools. And as we think about measuring learning, determining what percentage of students from a formative standpoint on a day-to-day process, what percentage of students internalize the standards, what percentage of students struggled, what percentage of students met and or exceeded standards, then we were able to provide safety nets for those children that did not meet the elements of the standard. But by having flexibility in that calendar, it allows us to have those additional opportunities during the regular school day by modifying the master schedule itself, as I mentioned. So time means flexibility with the master schedule. Time means flexibility with the school year itself. And it also means that ultimately we should secure additional intersessions. That's what I refer to these. A fall intersession, winter intersession, and definitely a summer intersession. So usually a week that will allow us to bring students back that need additional time. And this is even over and beyond what I've already alluded to. And not just for the safety net, not just for the student that struggled, but bring back the student who is on standard and exceeding so that we can provide enrichment, because at the same time that we want to see the student that's struggling across the standard move towards on standard and exceeding, we want to see the student that's exceeding, we want to see that proportion grow simultaneously. Right. So, but to your program question, I want to set that up first because that was important. Yes. Okay. So that's something that's ongoing. That has to happen each day. We have to know that it's happening each day. And the programs serve as an enhancement to that whole process. It ensures that in addition to all of the other things that we just talked about, that we're able to infuse the necessary rigor that children need as that work is done. And again, the child drives that decision-making process. So if we were to use pre-IB as an example, because that is one of the items that's being proposed, pre-IB, International Baccalaureate, you know that we already have a flourishing program at the high school level, International Baccalaureate opportunity.
Grammy High School.
Yes, opportunity, choice opportunity for students. But we don't see the number and the proportion of students ready to go into such a cutting-edge program at the rate that we should.
And so with this program coming in on the elementary level, will help guide them and prepare them for middle school and high school going into this, as well as AVID. Well, AVID, I believe, is on the middle school level. Yes, AVID begins at the middle school level. But if you use the concept of pre-IB and IB,
That allows us to begin to build a pipeline, a feeder process from elementary to middle, and then they're ready. And at a higher level, when it is time to make a choice between whether the parent and the student may decide that they want to go forward with a program like the Granby IB program. So they have that choice.
For us to do this at these 10 schools, this transformation initiative, how will it affect our staff and our students? How will they prepare for this in the buildings?
Professional learning is huge. When you consider pre-IB, IB, AVID, which is advancement via individual determination, when you consider the STEM approach and partnering with NASA, and when you consider the Montessori strategies that are cutting edge best practices for teaching children, all of those things are things that around which educators will benefit from very quickly. And when I mention educators, number one, the building level principle. Building level principles, great, effective building level principles, providing them the necessary supports, the necessary training. So there are clear standards and expectations around professional learning that would align with pre-IB, that would align with IB. So those principals would receive such training. And so they instantly become more effective with their work. They instantly become more effective with how to model for teachers, how to facilitate and oversee job-embedded professional learning. And so that gives you an example of what that means for principals, but for teachers, it makes teachers not just highly qualified, but highly effective teachers. Because now their professional learning will center on strategies that are going to allow them to increase the rate at which children internalize the elements of the standard. All of these things mean better performance as it relates to any summative assessment. Of course, you know, all of the process from a formative standpoint relates to the day-to-day teaching that should take place to help them be ready and prepared when the summative time presents itself.
So if my child is not currently attending one of the transformation initiative schools and they would want to be a part of one of the schools, is that something that we're working out or we're looking at, or is it future that a lot of our schools may turn into some of these schools with these programs?
Right, that is a component. That is a component, and I mentioned that we have people that have volunteered from the community to come together to help build that process. The initial mention of it was centering on the time piece, which is the calendar. And so just as we're going to have that focus group of people that volunteered along with my designees to talk and flesh out and build the recommendations around the calendar, we also have people that volunteered to work on the approach to a lottery component.
Okay.
And I don't know at the 100% level what that's going to look like, but I do have expectations. And one would be that we begin to give opportunities for children to and parents to make decisions around which of these themes are of interest to them.
Right.
And so in order to do that, we must be able to open seats for choice across the system. And so we want to build a process that would allow us to begin to do that. Now, you can't do that overnight. You
Right.
can't have large numbers of seats and opportunities overnight, in my view. Not with the process as it is recommended. That doesn't mean it won't be tweaked, you know, but the notion is to begin to give opportunities for others to transfer students in if they so choose. But my emphasis for these schools and for the families in these schools and for the children in these schools, my emphasis really and interest really centers on giving them priority decision-making opportunities about being able to take advantage of this whole process in their residential area. And so, again, that means priorities for those families and those students built into that process.
Okay. With all of this said, what's the next phase in this process?
Well, there's definitely planning, continued conversations. We will have 4 different groups that should be operating very soon. One, again, would be the calendar piece, and another would be decision-making around the lottery. What does that mean? And how can it be built to achieve the purpose that I have described? Also, a management team. Each one of these schools will have what's referred to as a management team. And that's another component of this that makes it innovative, in my view, and because it brings the school closer to the community and engagement through the communities, because I would expect that management team will probably consist of teachers, of course the principal, a business partner, or someone in the community that has a vested interest in the success of the school, coming together, other stakeholders to help facilitate the process of change and growth and improvement with the school. And that management team will have an opportunity to do things, for example, like take a look at site-based plans, and to have collaborative discussions around, does the site-based plan align with the needs of children? And if so, how? And where's the evidence? And how are we inspecting what we expect? So it gives another platform for that type of work to happen, and it gives another resource to the principal and also to the superintendent, because these are conversations that we have at the cabinet level, my superintendent's cabinet, but we also have these conversations as I engage with individual principals. But by having this piece, now we have additional transparency. We begin to work to change the perception of schools. Transparency means that more and more people, more and more stakeholders know and understand what's important about the work in these schools and how we're beginning to move the needle as it relates to increasing the percentage of students that meet and exceed standards, because at the end of the day, that's where the rubber meets the road.
And that's right, and I agree with you. And I thank you for coming on the show today to talk about this transformation initiative. And I think you've given a lot more highlight to it, personal and up close and up front, about what we're doing in the next phase of this whole process. And so we thank you for that. And we thank you for tuning in to NPS Now. If you want to know more about the Transformation Initiative, go to our website at www.npsk12/transformation. And coming up next, we'll have Dr. Latanya Simmons, who will talk about our open campus, coming up next on NPS Now. Welcome back to NPS Now. With us today is Dr. Latanya Simmons, Deputy Superintendent for Operations and Governmental Affairs. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Simmons, for NPS Now.
Pleasure.
Great to have you on the show. I think you've been on the show one time before, correct?
Yes, I have.
Oh, good, good. But good to have you today. Now, we want to talk about the Open Campus Charter Public High School. What is that program?
We have students that are overage for grade. We have students that have dropped out. And we have students that are behind in credits. This is a brand new non-traditional campus that has been designed to give these students another chance to succeed in both college and career and earn a high school diploma.
Wonderful. So what type of students are we really looking at that we're pinpointing for this open campus public high school?
One of the first things I did when I came to Norfolk Public Schools a year ago was walk into Lafayette Winona Middle School, for example, and there was a classroom that was designated for overage for grade. Students 16 years of age and older, and some younger but still overage for grade, that simply were taught or remediated. This school is designed to give these children an opportunity to succeed in a high school setting.
And what are some of the main features of this program?
The main feature is an online web-based curriculum aligned to the Virginia Standards of Learning. We've partnered with Magic Johnson Bridgescape, and this organization is providing a customized portfolio for students and a Virginia Standards of Learning curriculum that will allow students to receive instruction at their differentiated level as they sail through the completion of the credits that are required for them to graduate with a diploma.
Why did we pick the Magic Johnson Bridgescape program?
We had several people that competed, several companies that competed with the RFP process. And they were selected, number one, because of the customization of services for these students and the individualized portfolio that will allow the teachers and other people who care about these students to be able to provide the interventions that are necessary to make sure that they're successful.
Walk me through a day. If I were to walk into that school on Monday, what would my typical day be like?
If you were a student that had a child, for example, whether you're a boy or a girl, you'd be able to come to this school. There's an on-site daycare that's run by an outside agency. Leave your child where he or she can receive a quality education and then come to another part of the building, which is indeed the open high school. And you would come in and log on to your customized portfolio and start your day, taking the courses that you were either behind in credits on or whatever customized program has been designed that will allow you to move through the Virginia Standards of Learning courses and curricula so that you can graduate. Every day a student will come in, log in, complete his work, and receive individualized instruction from teachers that are on site too.
With the specialized opportunities for education, what type of hours of operation is this?
We intend, and this is all proposed, the board has not approved it yet, but we intend to start school at 7:30 in the morning, and we intend to keep the doors open until 4:30 in the afternoon.
And there's no fee, no cost to a student for this?
No fee, no cost. We are looking for innovative ways to fund this effort for our children. When children come in that are dropouts, of course, that's new revenue that will follow them to the site. But for students that are over age for grade, for students that are behind in credit, we're going to have to be really creative with regard to how we partner to generate funds to keep the doors open.
Now, this is new for us to do something of this type of venture or magnitude. Has it been successful in other school districts?
It's been extremely successful in other school districts. All around the state, 8 different states are using the Magic Johnson Bridgescape program. They just opened 2 in Chicago, and it's going really well. There's one in Durham, one in Savannah. But this is the first open campus charter high school. This is the first school of this type in the state of Virginia. So we're really excited about that. This will be the first brick and mortar school that the Magic Johnson Bridgescape program has ever run. So we're excited for many reasons.
How many students do you think we'll be bringing into this program?
We have thousands of children that fit into this category, but we want to do our initial phase with a high degree of integrity, a high degree of success. We're going to start with 250 students.
Wow. Is this going to be an opt-in program where you have the option, or is it going to be mandatory?
Students we'll have a system for selecting students, but I wouldn't want to use the word mandatory because we intend for students to sign a pact with the school district so that they agree to complete whatever the requirements are to help them become actively engaged in the learning process for the successful completion of a high school degree. So not mandatory, but not optional either, because we expect good behavior, we expect 100% attendance, but more than anything else, we expect to have this school staffed with highly motivated, sensational people who will deliver more than the norm to make sure that these kids are wanting every day to come and be engaged.
And this seems like a great opportunity for those students who are overage for grade, and I'm sure the parents will possibly want their child to go there, so they'll be in a different type of environment that will be conducive for their learning.
Yes, they do. We intend to engage parents every step of the way, also as a part of the management team. But you mentioned a very interesting thing, Karen. These students dropped out because they did not want to engage in the regular high school program. So when we thought about places that we could have this school, we knew that trying to have it at one of our existing high schools might not be a good option because these students need something new, exciting, and different. We've picked, through the RFP process, a fantastic location.
Wonderful.
And it's a new building, relatively new. It's slightly used, I'll say. And there's lots of natural light. It's a beautiful facility. And so it has an on-site daycare, as I mentioned before, right next door. Lots of room for buses to come and go, so we'll provide transportation for children.
So where is this
and it's on the
located?
city line. It's on East Little Creek Road.
Okay, I believe it's the old Calvary Revival School, correct?
Exactly. The public would remember it as being that. And it's been out of commission for about a year.
Wow, okay.
So I think we're lucky to have this site. They've given us a really good price to be able to lease the facility.
So what are the next steps for this proposed public high school?
The next step will be for the school board to receive the final proposal, and it will be submitted to them for their review, hopefully for approval within the first 2 weeks of November if the board decides to do that.
Okay, and then if they approve it, what's the next step?
If they approve it, we hit the ground running full speed ahead, and we want to open doors second semester for these children.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, this is some great, valuable information, and I'm sure parents and students who are watching who decided to drop out will want to come back and finish their education here at Norfolk Public Schools.
We intend to do lots of media blitzes. We're going to work with the team with Norfolk Public Schools and make sure the word gets out so that we can minimally begin to provide services for 250 students, and the sky's the limit in terms of where we go from there.
Well, we'll definitely have you come back on the show to talk about how the Open Campus Public Charter High School is going and doing.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching NPS Now. It airs weekly on WNPS Channel 47, or you can view it online at www.npsk12.com. Again, thank you for watching NPS Now.